This is From Justin to Kane, a podcast where Mike Robertson and Bob LaRue watch one critically acclaimed film and one terrible film and talk about how they are the same. Welcome, everybody, to From Justin to Kane. I'm Bob.
And I'm Mike.
This week, we're back to our regular programming again.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting into the nitty-gritty of comparing two movies, one wonderful, one not so wonderful. Mike, what are the films this week?
So the films this week are 1963's The Great Escape, directed by...
John Sturges.
John Sturges, right. I actually didn't even know who directed it as I watched it. Now that I know, classic Sturges, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's definitely his style.
And then the other one is a movie called Tiptoes from the year 2003, written and directed by Matthew Bright.
So I own The Great Escape on DVD. Mm-hmm. I watched it. I loved it. I gave it to Mike. He proceeded to watch it on his cell phone instead of on the DVD because the resolution was better.
Yeah.
Was that your first time watching the movie, Mike?
I'd never seen it, yeah. But I had watched...
Did you enjoy it?
I was aware of the movie through The Simpsons because there's that one scene where Maggie has to escape from the daycare and they play the Great Escape music, the doot-doot. So I had seen that scene and heard that music probably like 10,000 times in my life, but I had never watched the actual movie.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
So pretty fun.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I'm glad you finally saw it because it's like I gotta be honest, The Great Escape holds a special place in my heart. I used to watch it all the time as a kid.
Yeah, it was truly a great escape for you as a child.
Yeah, you could say that.
To escape from the hard life of a white middle-class child in Canada.
Yeah, you know it.
Yeah.
You know it. I watched it on double box set VHS with my grandma.
Wow.
The first time I saw it back in 2000 and I want to say like 7.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great.
Yeah. Watched it for the first time over the last 3 days. Because it is nearly 3 hours long.
Yeah. I watched it in one sitting. No big deal. Same with Tiptoes, which I will say felt longer than The Great Escape. Can I say that?
It did. Yes, it did. Yeah.
How did Tiptoes sit with you? Did it did you enjoy it?
I kind of did.
In what way?
Well, as I was watching it, I was like, this is not as bad as I was expecting. I was expecting it to be just unbelievably atrocious, but I was like, oh, this is offensive. And then the next scene I'd be like, oh no, this is very progressive. And then the next scene is like, oh no, this is very offensive. And it just kind of went on. And then as the movie went on, it got worse.
Right.
But it also, spoiler alert, the movie seems like it kind of just abandons itself as it goes on. Like just whatever it tried to set up, any plot thread it sets up, it just kind of half-assedly resolves or doesn't resolve. And then it ends just abruptly.
So. Yeah, 100%. It really felt like they threw the script in the garbage about an hour in, and then they were just like, let's just improvise and really make Gary Oldman and Kate Beckinsale fall in love. Should we get into it, Mike?
Let's get into it, okay. Gotta please the canines with your catchphrase.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
What's my catchphrase? Do I have a catchphrase? Get with the program. That's what I say.
Yeah, we'll see how the canines feel about that. I'll pull them after and see if that's a popular one. We'll see. See.
So, so Tiptoes is a movie that was released in theaters extremely briefly, then just was shot right to DVD. Came out in 2003, was written and directed by Matthew Bright, who used a pseudonym Bill Weiner for the writing credit in this film. And then he could not use a pseudonym through some sort of rule, which I don't know what that rule is, but I read that he could not get his name off as a director, but so he just could only get his name off as a writer.
Was he ashamed of the film?
He wasn't at the time, but probably now he's probably ashamed of it. And then also, I think it probably meant he could not get work for the next 20 years. So one would assume. One would assume.
One would assume there's some regret.
Yeah.
Okay, fascinating. What else? Like, can you explain why the film was made? Do you know why?
Yeah. So Matthew Bright was like a filmmaker, kind of came up as a challenging indie filmmaker in the 90s. He did a movie called Gun Crazy with Drew Barrymore. He also made Freeway with Reese Witherspoon. It's a bit of a tongue twister.
I'm sorry, who?
Reese Witherspoon. So, and those
Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah, those are movies I remember seeing in the video store as a child or as a teen.
Right.
And never renting, but they seemed intriguing, I guess, in some way, in that they seemed kind of rebellious. The producer of Tiptoes says that Matthew Bright was a popular writer who wrote to the edge. He had other projects that were even crazier. So, like, I haven't seen Gun Crazy or Freeway, but I assume that they're kind of like edgy based on that quote. So
okay.
So he came up with the idea and wrote Tiptoes when he was 18 years old. He thought of it as he wrote it as like a comedy where like little people having sex with each other was kind of like the bit of the movie. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he kind of was coming at it from like a dismissive little people are weird kind of angle. And I never really
treating it like a circus show rather than a story, so to speak.
Yeah, and so I never really got into what the movie's about. Matthew McConaughey plays a guy who his whole family is little people, and his girlfriend doesn't know. He keeps it from her, and then she meets his twin brother, who is a little person played by Gary Oldman, and then she discovers the secret that he was harboring for some reason, like that he was keeping from her. And then the movie kind of becomes a drama about how he kind of has issues with his family. He kind of has resentment problems, and he doesn't want to have a child that might be a little person, even though little people has been like a normalized part of his life, his entire life. Mm-hmm. So that's the synopsis of the film. And yeah, it tonally is all over the place because it plays itself as a comedy sometimes, and then it plays itself as like this really hard-hitting kind of Hallmark-esque drama.
The dramatic points are not impactful, is what I would say. They just sort of seem like this weird stretch into this like, oh, we're trying to make this film really touching and poignant, and it's not.
It's not,
but they try. They try.
Yeah. So here's some facts about the film. Yeah, I said that the director wrote it as a comedy when he was 18, and he had some movies made. He was building some indie cred, and then somehow the producers of the TV show Cops had heard about this project, and they wanted to fund it. So he couldn't get funding for the film. It was just kind of sitting in his back pocket his whole like career, like 30 years after he wrote it.
Right.
And then he, because I guess he would have wrote it in the 70s.
Yeah, what was he in his 50s? Like when he made the film?
Yeah, he was in his 50s when he made it, yeah.
Oh, man, could you imagine being kind of like in the middle of your life and making such a turd? Jeez.
But also good for him that his success had already kind of preceded him. Mm-hmm. It's not like he kind of just got his career started and then it kind of plummeted. It's like he already had success and now he lost it. But I mean, rightly so. But anyway, the producers of Cops got involved. They wanted to make like a powerful message movie.
Right.
And so as a result, there was like a lot of kind of battles with the producers because he didn't want it to be like this corny melodrama. And I guess they did. So, but also they're the producers of Cops. So they have specific tastes, I guess.
Yeah. And they really understand tone. That's for sure.
So
Cops has a tone. But
the casting in this movie is wild. Got like an incredibly A-list cast, which if this was a movie that came out these days, I mean, this movie would not come out these days, but if this cast was in a movie, it would be awesome.
I know. I can't believe who they got. I was just like, Kate Beckinsale's in this? What the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman, he plays Matthew McConaughey's twin brother, who is a dwarf, and also Peter Dinklage. And Patricia Arquette, or Patty Arquette.
Patty Arquette, as Mike and I like to call.
Yeah, so we
her.
got Patty Arquette, we got Pete Dinklage, we got Kate Beckinsale,
Matt,
and Matt McConaughey.
Yeah.
So like that's a great cast. And it's kind of wasted on this bizarre film that takes itself way too seriously, and then ends up abruptly, like way too abruptly. So
the ending. So when the ending happened, Mike, I was looking at my phone, and then I looked up and the credits were on, and I was like, wait a minute, it ended? So then I scrubbed back on the timeline 3 minutes, and I watched the ending scene, and I was like, there's obviously a scene missing on this like copy of the film I'm watching.
No.
And there isn't. That's just the end of the film. It just ends with this really abrupt, you can kiss me if you want.
Yeah.
From Kate Beckinsale to Gary Oldman.
Like she just seems like she's a really kind of cool, classy person, maybe because she's British. But this movie kind of illustrates how weird she probably is in real life. Because apparently,
what do you mean by that?
Well, apparently she did the movie for SAG minimum wage, like basically dirt cheap relative to what you could get paid for a movie. And then her only like stipulation was that the character would wear her lucky hat that she had in real life. So she wanted to have her hat make a cameo in the film. And the director was like, sure, I mean, we can make this for dirt cheap. But the producers of Cops, who also produced this film, thought the hat was stupid. And so they just were getting into scraps with the director and with Kate Beckinsale a lot on the movie.
About the hat.
About the hat, among other things. And there's like, the character wears a lot of dumb hats. Did the hat end up in
the movie?
I think it did, because the character wears a lot of really stupid hats. So I imagine they were from her own closet.
Yeah, the whole every costume she wore, I was kind of like, this is wild.
Yeah.
Every scenario, I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Apparently, this movie played at Sundance. Like basically, the movie played at Sundance once. The director like used his time before or after the movie to talk about it, to just rip on the producers, and then somebody representing the producers, or maybe one of the producers, like stormed the stage and like got into a fight with them on like in front of people at a Sundance premiere. But I don't know what Sundance it was at, but I went to the Sundance Film Festival once in my life, and it was in 2003, and it may have been the same ones that Tiptoes was at. I avoided this film somehow. I could have been at that premiere. I could have been at the premiere of Tiptoes, but I didn't see it.
Oh, I wish you had, Mike.
I wish I had too.
That would be amazing. I can't believe that. That's astonishing.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I know. I read an interview with Peter Dinklage about it. He was like all for it.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
He says that some people would look at what Gary Oldman does in the movie as kind of a form of blackface, of like little people blackface, and is like, yeah, that's why people think this is a weird ass movie, because he's kind of doing like little people blackface. His term, not mine.
Yeah.
But he says it's still like a positive movie, and like the little people representation in the film is insane. There's like so many. They probably had like every single working actor in the movie.
Oh, absolutely.
And just playing regular people, not playing like, leprechauns.
Yeah, or like stereotypical stuff.
Just playing regular people with like backstories and stuff. So it's like, this is like, if this movie didn't revolve itself around the plot of Matthew McConaughey's character, then it would have been like a really progressive, powerful movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because we have
if other things had changed, it would have been a progressive, powerful movie.
But it was also originally intended as a, haha, look at little people, they're weird.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird story.
That's what I was expecting from the trailer, was like, this just feels very exploitative. But then watching it, I was like, this is obviously attempting to be a social piece.
Yeah.
Talking about ableism, basically.
But I watched the YouTube comment, I looked at the YouTube comments. Yeah, one of the people said the score in the movie doesn't seem to know what it's trying to telegraph. It just kind of sounds like someone is playing random notes. Like it doesn't know if it's supposed to be emotional or funny. Like it just kind of is playing. And it's like, it's true. The movie tonally just has no idea what it's trying to do.
Yeah, it felt like elevator music throughout. And I was like, this feels like it's just canned, and they just kind of slap something on just so they could move on to the next scene.
Exactly.
And it never really fits. It was weird. It was a weird film to watch. I wish I had watched it at 1.5 speed.
I
always forget about that after I'm done watching a movie that was painful to sit through.
Well, also just the fact that it's called Tiptoes is kind of like dismissive. That like, yeah, they're smaller, so they have to be on their tiptoes.
Well, you know what? It's twofold. Here's why it's called Tiptoes. It's called Tiptoes because, there are smaller characters that have to get on their tiptoes to, like, I don't know, do shit. And that's a very dismissive use of the name. But Matthew McConaughey is tiptoeing around the fact that he comes from a family of little people.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it's an attempt to be very clever, but it just comes across as derogatory.
Yeah. Also, one person that we did not mention in terms of the cast, I don't know his name, but the guy from Twin Peaks is the dad. And I saw him, I was like, yes, that guy.
I was excited to see him too. I was like, nice. This is some good casting. Because that guy rocks. He was amazing in Twin Peaks.
Yeah. And it's cool that he's just playing like a dad. Michael J. Anderson is his name.
Michael J. Anderson. Yeah, he was just Matthew McConaughey's dad. It was sweet.
Yeah, because even in Twin Peaks, he's kind of regarded as an oddity. Like, even though it's not explicitly regarded that way, he's there because David Lynch is like, isn't this weird?
Yeah. David Lynch, the German film director, not the guy from like Philadelphia or wherever the hell he was born.
Yeah, David Lynch kind of talks, I'm David Lynch. Isn't it weird? That's how he talks.
That's pretty good.
Another classic impression from Justin McCain.
Oh, yeah. Mike's full of impressions. I can't wait till we do a Christopher Walken movie and you and I just start riffing nonstop and not talking about anything relevant. That's going to be a good day for you and I and the Canines.
Should we do The Deer Hunter?
We could. Michael Cimino's only successful film.
I've never seen The Deer Hunter.
Before, so he made that and then he made Gates of Heaven. Gates of Heaven or Heaven's Gate?
Heaven's Gate.
Yeah,
Gates
Heaven's
of Heaven
Gate,
is the Errol Morris documentary.
Right. So he made Heaven's Gate and then he bankrupted United Artists.
As one does.
Yeah. Pretty funny, though, I think. Anywho, do you have any other fun facts about this movie?
No.
Okay, cool. Well, should I get into The Great Escape?
You can. Okay. You may.
Okay, The Great Escape, released in 1963. It's an action thriller World War II film about a group of POWs and some sort of, they're all from the various air forces of the Allied forces, and they're all shot down pilots, and they're in this POW camp, and they try to dig a tunnel and escape to raise as much hell as possible in the German countryside to divert troops from the front to Germany, so that basically they just try to raise hell and make lives very difficult for the German forces.
Right.
It's your classic. I'd say it's in the same subgenre of like A-list action film. Like The Magnificent Seven is a very similar film in a lot of ways. Obviously, this is a World War II film, and that is a Western, but they both have actually a lot of overlap in cast, but it's just like, it's an ensemble piece, no real character development, just like a bunch of A-listers, hot-looking dudes, male-dominated cast, and they just basically go on an adventure based on a historical time. So, yeah, it stars Steve McQueen, James Garner, Richard Attenborough, Charles Bronson, Donald Pleasance, and James Coburn, amongst many others. The list is literally too long for me to rattle off all the names. It'd be pretty boring. Mm-hmm. So it came out in 1963. Several of the cast were actual POWs in the Second World War.
Oh, wow.
Most notably, Donald Pleasance was an actual pilot in the RAF, the British Royal Air Force, and he was shot down and he was in a Stalag camp. And so he actually like lived through this shit. He never was like involved with tunnels and raising hell and blah, blah, blah. But he was shot down. He lived in a camp. He served his time during the war in a POW camp. It's directed by John Sturges, as we said. A fun fact. So a lot of A-list celebrities in this film. The script wasn't totally finalized as the film proceeded. And so a lot of the A-listers would like input ideas they had for shit they could do in the movie, basically. And this was a Steve McQueen vehicle. And it was his idea to do the motorcycle jump at the end of the film. And he basically just wanted an excuse to be on a motorbike and do a bunch of cool shit.
Yeah.
So that's why the whole sequence with him driving through little villages trying to evade the Nazis who are also on motorbikes. And then he does that big famous jump, which he didn't actually do. His friend, Bud Eakins, who is a really famous stunt performer from the 60s and a motorcycle racer, he did the jump, and you can see a really sneaky jump cut in that sequence. But Steve McQueen did all the other stunts. Like, he did everything up to that point. And then the producers and the insurers wouldn't let him do it because it was too risky financially. Because he could have gotten seriously hurt.
Classic.
But we all know Steve McQueen could have done it. He was a very good race car driver, very good motorcycle racer, real daredevil. He loved cars. He loved, getting down and dirty with automotive risk taking. So anyways, yeah, he didn't do the famous jump. Many people think he did. That's kind of interesting. He and Richard Attenborough had a lot of beef on set. They would argue a lot, and Steve McQueen would often voice his opinion and say when things sucked on the set, when he thought like the movie was going to be bad or a scene didn't make any sense or it wasn't cool enough. He would just kind of argue with John Sturges and Richard Attenborough, which is hilarious. He's famously immature as a movie star.
Steve McQueen.
Yeah, Steve McQueen. I think Richard Attenborough is just like a British gentleman, and he's just like, it's a gig.
Oh, yeah.
But Steve McQueen is like a real boy man, just like a real immature man-child, I guess is the term I'm looking for. But anywho, everyone on the crew, including all the A-list stars, so I'm talking like the caterers, the grips, Steve McQueen, the transport team, everybody, they worked together. They were given like rubber line and like rubber wire, and they all had to build 5 feet of this cable with spikes on it, and that's what became the barbed wire in the film.
Right.
So that was like a real team effort to get all the barbed wire built, and it was all built out of this like rubber cable. And everyone helped, like everyone contributed just like at night to building this wire, which is kind of interesting because it was too much work for the art department to do alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty much everything I got for the film. Also, I guess one more thing to say is the film is pretty inaccurate. They actually misnamed the tunnels. Like they mixed them up. Like the tunnel that was caught wasn't the actual tunnel caught in the original incident. Like Tom and Harry or whatever were like flipped. Right. So the actual names are the opposite of what the movie says they are. And it says that 70 something got out, but I think the number is closer to 40. And I can't totally recall. It's like 1 or 2 actually like got away and escaped. So the film inflated some of the numbers and the details just to make it more interesting.
Right.
But overall, like I love this movie. I think it's great.
Yeah, it was fascinating because the movie starts, they set up, hey, these guys are trapped in a camp. They got to escape. And then the rest of the movie, the next 2 hours and 49 minutes is them trying to escape and then escaping. In a, I would say, great way.
Didn't you find it super charming, though? You know, like when they're getting out, like with the Russians and, like Charles Bronson has a hat on and a thing, and he says like Russian for I love you. And then the mole climbs into the pine tree truck and tries to get in, and then there's a pitchfork, and then he calls all the guys out. It's just charming. It's like a very fun, light movie.
Is that Charles Bronson of Death Wish?
Yes, same guy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was the thing. I watched this movie without knowing the caliber of A-list stars because they were young, and I didn't recognize the younger version of himself. I didn't recognize young James Garner. Didn't recognize young Richard Attenborough of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize Charles Bronson.
Yeah. It's full of A-listers. And you know what's funny? Have you ever seen NCIS?
I have not.
Oh, okay. Well, the like mortician examiner guy from NCIS is the blonde British guy who invented the sacks of dirt in your pockets that you pull the string and it pours out your shoes. That's the same guy, which is kind of interesting. You see him as like a really young man, and then you see him 35 years later in this like prolific syndicated TV show.
Yeah.
That he's been on for like over 20 years.
Wow.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, should we get into it?
Yeah.
Some comparisons.
Yeah, man.
Okay, I got a comparison here that's pretty fucking good, I think.
Nice.
Both films heavily feature motorcycles.
Go on.
So you have Gary Oldman and Peter Dinklage, and they have their like custom choppers. They're more like tricycles, I guess, but they're motorbikes.
Well, both films start with shots of motorcycles, like literally the first scene.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it starts with highway shots of vehicles moving down the highway. And that's where you kind of meet not all your characters, but some important ones.
You definitely meet the important characters in Tiptoes of Peter Dinklage's character Pete Dinklage's character and Patty Arquette's character, who just do stuff and then disappear.
Yeah. It's interesting. They're never a part of the plot. Their romance, you know what it felt like was watching, like they seem like the cast of True Romance. They were just like on the cusp of being criminals, and they're very rough but deeply in love, and they just met. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that 90s trope of just like a weird couple, you know, similar to True Romance and that Oliver Stone movie.
Natural Born Killers.
Yeah, Natural Born Killers. Similar vibe. Just like a crime couple in the 90s, just like being wild and crazy.
Yeah, actually, you're right. That kind of has the same vibes, yeah.
As Patricia Arquette and Peter Dinklage.
Well, yeah, the thing is, like, in a normal script, those characters would just exist to kind of perpetuate a whatever the theme of the movie is in a different way than the main characters.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be just based on how those characters interact. It could be that little people and average sized people can't be together. Mm-hmm. This is the point that it's trying to make, which seems like a very
problematic.
Yeah, it seems like a problematic viewpoint. Yeah, but
a weird thesis for the film.
But also, the height differences don't make a difference to them.
No,
it's more
just personality
disputes.
The film's whole stance is that it can work because Kate Beckinsale and Gary Oldman kiss at the end.
Yeah.
So, you know, true love is true love. Fuck it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Although there's no reason for them to kiss because there was no setup for that.
Yeah, that's true, Mike. That is relevant. That's a relevant observation.
Literally no foreshadowing aside from...
You can kiss me if you want. And then he just kisses her and then the credits roll. They're just looking at the stars. She's holding her baby. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense.
But anyway, you were talking about motorcycles.
Yeah, anyways, both films like heavily display motorcycles. And I'd say it's like irrelevant to the plot, but still heavily featured, right?
Yes.
And I'd say both films do that.
It may have just been that they were like, hey, we want to have motorcycles. Like Pete Dinklage may have been like, I want to ride a motorcycle. And then they were like, Definitely. Yeah, why not? Because his character seems like a badass, not unlike Steve McQueen's character.
I would say Steve McQueen's character and Peter Dinklage are the same trope in each film. Mm-hmm. They're like the badass, like rough and tumble fella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, great start.
Thanks. I thought I'd start off with my best one and just decline from here.
We already kind of touched on it, but A-list celebs. Both films are featuring a lot of A-list celebs. I mean, even like a quartet of A-list celebs, really. Mm-hmm. So...
I also had that down. Both films are definitely just like star vehicles.
Both films are about hidden dirt. You know?
No, I need you to explain that.
Well,
please.
Because the POW guys are worried that the dirt will be discovered by the Germans, which seems like a weird thing for them to be obsessed with. Which is like, oh, they're going to know that the dirt color is different. I can't imagine anybody would be like, oh, so dirt is a different color. These guys are trying to escape. Man. Like they know that they're trying to escape.
When they know that there's a tunnel being dug, they're looking for different colored dirt. You know what I mean? Like I think the German guards would be on their A game looking for indicators that there's a tunnel being dug.
I guess so.
But then you see like the rafters warping and stuff. Like there were a lot of dead giveaways that they just like didn't even bring up, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But anyways, continue.
The POW guys are worried that they're going to discover that they're building a tunnel until they come up with a complicated solution to getting rid of the dirt, which is basically having these little pockets that will just dump dirt through their pants as they walk. So it just kind of mixes
and then
it in.
Kick it.
Yeah. So they can kick it and they just mix it in with the regular dirt. Similarly, in Tiptoes, Matthew McConaughey keeps a secret from his fiancée that his family is all little people. Not really dirt, but it's like keeping a secret, you know.
Well, she gets the dirt on him by finding out that he's holding a secret, you know, and that's kind of how the rest of the film progresses.
Yeah,
I was going to say both films star for their respective generation America's coolest leading man.
Mm-hmm.
So you have Steve McQueen as the sort of the lead of this ensemble in The Great Escape, and he was like undeniably a real hunk. Like Humphrey Bogart was dead by this point. Cary Grant was out of the game. In the 60s, like the 60s were Steve McQueen's. That was his real estate to get shit done, you know? And I'd say like what's interesting is McConaughey now is the coolest he's ever been, but he was pretty cool in the early 2000s too.
Well, this was the same year he made How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
And that was a great movie.
Okay.
A great rom-com. I don't know if the canines haven't seen How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I've seen the film about 7 times.
Like this week.
It's great. Oh, no, I mean today.
Oh, okay.
That's why I woke up early. It wasn't, I watched Tiptoes super fast, and then I've been watching it all day just leading up to this recording. Great movie. Anywho, so, you know, he was a hunk, he was a leading man, and even now, like, he is our leading man, you know. He's like a Carhartt guy, he's a Lincoln guy. He's worked with some of the best directors in Hollywood. He's an Oscar winner, he's a dramatic actor. And I'd say, you know, he and Steve McQueen sort of are in the same echelon of their respective eras. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I would say both films are about military men trying to escape.
Ooh.
Because
I never connected that. He's a Navy man.
He's a Navy man, yeah. Matthew McConaughey's character is a Navy man. And then he is trying to escape his relationship plus his past.
Yes.
Because he has resentment that he never gets over in the film about just like
I never really understood why he left.
Well, that was the interesting part about the film. And this is another similarity I'm just kind of piecing together as I'm saying it. But
ooh, spicy. That's what the canines live for.
A lot of development happens off screen. So because Matthew McConaughey will just disappear for a while in the movie, and then Kate Beckinsale will go and hang out with Gary Oldman, I guess, during that time. And that happens like 2 or 3 times during the film. And then every time he disappears, he comes back and is like, oh, you know what? Let's make this work. So a lot of character development is happening off screen, just as the characters in Great Escape are. You don't really see them digging the tunnel and putting up all the wood paneling and building all of the things. You see it a little bit, but a lot of that montage stuff is kind of implied. So
yeah, all the shit gets done between the scenes.
I mean, and good, because that would be boring to watch. Similarly, but in Tiptoes, we don't ever get to see him come to any realizations. He just comes to them after he disappears for a while. And then he disappears again, and then has the opposite point of view, and then eventually he just stops showing up.
Yeah, I have a question. I imagine there were a lot of deleted scenes in this film in Tiptoes. And you know when he's on the phone with Kate Beckinsale and she's like, oh, I just got invited to that party by your brother. Will you come? And he's obviously upset with her. And then he like hangs up the phone and then just invites that random blonde woman who walks out from the forest behind him. Mm-hmm. Was that supposed to be like some fling he was having that never came to fruition within the plot? Like I was getting this vibe that I'm like, oh, those two are obviously sleeping together and they're an item. But then at the party, she like saw that celebrity guy, ran off to get an autograph. And I was like, interesting. They insinuated one thing and then the payoff is just the opposite. So I don't know what's going on here. Yeah,
that is kind of weird. That is a thing that happens sometimes in bad movies where they signal things that the audience is kind of used to seeing. Mm-hmm. It's not even so much that the movie was like ever wanting to do that. It just signaled it in.
It might have been unintentional.
Yeah, I think it was unintentional, but I think the movie does that quite a bit, where it just kind of gives you a sense that something is going to happen, and then the opposite happens. Mm-hmm. For example, Kate Beckinsale and Gary Oldman, spoiler alert, kissing at the end. No indication that was ever going to happen.
No, I never once thought like, wow, these two might get freaky.
Yeah.
Not once. I was like, there's no romance here. Like, this is, I don't know what's going on here. Yeah, it was crazy.
On that point, both films had no real character development or no clear character development because in The Great Escape, they were just like, we got to escape. And then they do. And that's the entire thing. There's no real like characters being developed besides one guy being like, I'm going blind, but I'm not going to tell anybody. And then someone says, hey, you're blind. And he's like, yeah, I am. And that's kind of like the most character development that happens in the movie. Similarly, in Tiptoes, they're like, Matthew McConaughey is cool with little people. And then once his fiance finds out about it, she's like weird about it. And then she almost instantly becomes cool with it. And then he
becomes weird.
He instantly becomes weird about it. And like, it's very unclear character development. And then her plot doesn't change the rest of the film. Like her story arc is like, I'm still cool with this. In fact, I'm like really into this community. Mm-hmm. And he rebels against it maybe just because. Yeah, and it's never really clear what's going on. So in a way, they both start off in one spot and end up in a different spot character-wise, which is, I guess, what you want in a character.
Yeah.
But it's like kind of happens instantly at the beginning of the movie, and then you just have to wait for the movie to end. Mm-hmm. It's like 90 more minutes of just waiting for these characters to just stop being on my screen.
There's nothing worse than watching a film and you're like, I'm counting the moments until it's over, you know? And that's how I feel usually with 50% of the movies we watch.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Except for Cats.
Cats. Great film.
Cats could have been 5 hours long.
The canines, obviously the canines hate cats because they're all dogs. But, I get heated comments all the time about our approach to loving cats.
Well, we also went against the grain of our own podcast concept because the idea was that the movies are bad and they're universally reviled or universally acclaimed, and Cats was one of those, and it wasn't the latter. So
yes, absolutely. We definitely changed. We subverted what we said we were going to do, which is fair.
We usually are like, personal opinion doesn't come into this, but in that case, it really did.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. Personal opinions coming in all this shit, you know, all the time.
Art is subjective. That's really what our podcast is saying.
That's true, and except for Cats. Cats is just good.
Yeah,
there's nothing subjective about it. It's just the bona fide truth.
I know.
You can't dispute it. Okay. I have another one. Bear with me on this one. Okay?
Jesus, that's never a good
Mike?
Start.
Just listen up, canines. This is a masterclass on making an argument without any real evidence. Okay?
Nice.
Both films have a gathering of international characters, an ensemble of characters from different countries of origin, okay? Mm-hmm. So obviously in The Great Escape, it's this mishmash of allied forces. So you've got Americans, Brits, the Scottish, the French, the Dutch, and then Germans. So you got this whole shebang, just a real hodgepodge of people from different countries.
A melting pot, a cultural mosaic.
Yeah.
Those things mean two different things. But
they definitely mean different things. I'd almost argue they mean the opposite of each other.
So maybe it's okay. I take back the melting pot thing. It's not a melting pot. Well, it would be a melting pot after a while.
Well, there is a culture that's built within the POW camp that I think is worthy of mention. Anywho, and then in Tiptoes, the film starts off with that conference at the beginning, and you have people coming from many different states.
Yeah.
And also Peter Dinklage, who is, air quotes, French in the film.
Yes.
And as a side note, I read this. I don't know if it's true, but this is the film that got Peter Dinklage Game of Thrones.
Really?
Yeah. So the creators of Game of Thrones saw that he could pull off a French accent, and they went, he can...
Oh, Jesus.
He can handle the film. Like we can give him any dialect and he'll figure it out.
Well, the thing is, Peter Dinklage is like a great actor.
He's astonishing.
And this movie is not evidence of that.
I'd say the same for Gary Oldman.
I actually thought Gary Oldman's character was fairly well done.
Really?
It was, as the movie trailer says, it was the role of a lifetime for him, in that God help you if you do this role more than once, you know? But like, him playing a dwarf was like, well done. He did a good job. I thought it was just well acted.
Yeah, yeah. I was impressed by how they pulled it off too.
Yeah.
Like I was like, because you told me Gary Oldman was in the movie, and then I was watching. I'm like, that isn't Gary Oldman.
It's a wild choice. Like, you have Peter Dinklage, you know, the Marlon Brando of little people actors. I don't know if that's a thing I can say, but he's like one of the best.
That's being said.
He's one of the best,
a great
if not
actor,
the
though.
best actor in that community.
Yeah.
In Hollywood, and he's playing this side character who has a subplot that goes nowhere. Like, why did they not just like cast Peter Dinklage in that role? Like,
Because Peter Dinklage wasn't recognized at that point as a wonderful actor. Like, he wasn't a sterling actor at that point, as far as I know.
Well, The Station Agent came out around that time.
Respected.
But this was like that year, 2003 was the year he made The Station Agent, if I'm not mistaken. Because I remember it played at the Sundance Film Festival that I was at in 2003.
Right.
And
well, you love bringing up that you went to Sundance in 2003, Mike. Jeez, how many more times are you going to say
Actually, I went to Sundance. Did you know?
Oh, in what year? In what year?
It was 2003, the year of our Lord.
Interesting.
So yeah, I remember that movie came out then because people were talking about Peter Dinklage that year, and that was the first time I'd heard of him. And I was like, "Oh, I got to see the Station Agent movie." Cut to the Future, never did see it, but so he was being recognized that year. So, and it was with a different movie that played at Sundance, I think the same time.
Interesting.
So he should have been like, they should have done. I mean, when they made the movie, they probably didn't know. Who could have predicted? But whoever made The Station Agent took a risk, and it worked out for everybody. Whereas the person who made Tiptoes didn't take that risk, and it failed. I feel like the movie actually wouldn't have been, regarded as being like this insane failure if actually they had cast Peter Dinklage as that character.
I think it would have helped.
It would have helped because it would have legitimized the story, which has there's no reason that like people who are not little people should be making a movie with this kind of plot. Yeah. I don't think. Like, I mean, I'm speaking out of turn here, of course, but
no, but I agree with you for sure. I agree.
Especially when you learn that the director originally wrote it as kind of like wouldn't it be funny if these people had sex in a movie?
Yeah, it's just a mocking comedy.
Yeah. And then tonally believe it or not, the people who produced Cops saved the day in a weird way.
Yeah, they're like, this seems insensitive. This needs to be a touching film, okay? We need to address serious things.
Yeah. The people who perpetuate that police cracking down on people of color is a thing that should be normalized. Like they stepped in and were like, yeah, okay, hold on. This is a bit insensitive here. This is like, this is a bad thing.
Well, Cops they've obviously picked their battles, and they've been some weird battles.
Yes.
And now Cops is no longer on the air.
No, thank goodness. Although I didn't know it was ever on the air after the 90s.
Oh, really? No, I think it was on up until very recently.
Well, I just learned kind of that Survivor has still been on all this time.
Oh, interesting. I don't know anything about Survivor or like Big Brother. As far as reality TV goes, all I watch is Love Island.
Yeah, of course you would.
Yeah, the canines love Love Island, right? Send us some emails, send up some faxes. We want to hear how you feel about Love Island.
We maybe do a mini-sode about Love Island.
I think we should. Does anyone in your life watch Love Island?
Not recently, but yes.
Okay. Cool. Okay, good.
But anyway, we went on a little tangent here. Let's get back to this segment because we're in the middle of a segment. Of the two segments we have, one of them being here is the information you need to know to understand the movies, and then here are the loosely drawn similarities between them.
I'll be honest with you. The reason I like that we've taken such a drastic detour is because my list is just about to run out.
Oh.
How's your list looking?
I'm halfway through it.
What? Oh my God, I have one more thing. That's okay. I'll piece it together.
Well,
Let's start with you, Mike.
We can do a lightning round also so I can get through mine because they're kind of similar, some of these. I mean, both films deal with prejudice.
Yes.
So Nazism, obviously, and then average people thinking that little people are somehow like weird.
Mm-hmm.
So that's prejudice. But also, both films are about people with differences realizing that those differences mean nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily. I mean, we all know how World War II ended, but
what? How did it end?
Well, it ended. But no. So people with differences realizing those differences mean nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, World War II. Obviously, POW camp didn't just fold after Werner and the other guy were like, hey, you know what? We're friends. We have a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
But it was basically, I guess the point is people from both camps being like, hey, you know what? We're just in this war together. We both don't like being in the war. We're just people, right? So both films kind of say people are people at one point.
I kind of thought not the noble thing, but the realistic thing would, if you had a commandant of a prison camp like that, who was so transparent about how into the fact that like it was so cushy at that camp. It's like, listen, let's just like work as a team. Let's ride this out. You're allowed to garden. You're allowed to sing. You can take photos. And it's like, I don't know. I'd be like, yeah, maybe we should all just ride this out together because this way none of us die.
Yeah.
But then you wouldn't have a sweet, crazy action movie with Steve McQueen.
Well, yeah, people were surprisingly chill given that they were in a POW camp.
It was profoundly inaccurate in its depiction of the tone of a POW camp, I think.
Yeah. Well, they seemed like they were at a little resort half the time, right?
Yeah.
Because they could just kind of go where they pleased as long as they didn't escape and do what they wanted for the most part. Nobody seemed all that stressed out. And yeah, so weird.
And you're getting chocolate and coffee and cigarettes from the Red Cross. Like, what else do you need?
Well, also when they were like, hey, look at these jackets I dyed, is like, where the heck did you get all that dye from? Also, where'd you get all that fabric? Like, they had a lot of stuff.
What's amazing, though? They actually did that.
I know. That's what's weird about it.
They forged documents. They took photos. They made costumes. Like, it was very intricate, and it kind of worked.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is, again, pretty loose one. Buckle up. I apologize. This is definitely my worst one on the list. But both films have an ensemble-y kind of cast, but with one wily guy. So the wily guy in The Great Escape is the gopher, the Scottish airman, who eventually dies because he just gets pushed too far to the edge when Tom is discovered, the tunnel of Tom. And then he climbs the fence and gets shot. And I'd say Peter Dinklage is the wily guy.
He's wild.
Yeah, he's like on a motorbike. He has a gun.
Yeah.
Also, he almost shoots that motel owner.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
So just both characters are kind of on the brink of destruction. And this film does a really casual way of exploring that.
Great. Okay, well, let me do a little lightning round because then we can move on.
To our next segment.
I'll do a lightning round so we can move on to our next segment.
Perfect.
We love segments here from Justin DeCane. So, lightning round, play the musical stinger.
Do.
Great,
Anywho.
Great stinger. Okay, so so both movies are about being quiet, that being escaping and walking on tiptoes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That took me a second to really just like...
That one's more clever than it is true.
Yes. But I like it. I like that.
Both movies feature a rebellion against leftist politics. And by rebellion, I mean the Nazis.
Yeah.
So... and
the Nazis did rebel for sure.
Yeah. And then in Tiptoes, Peter Dinklage's character is a outspoken communist and everybody thinks he's an idiot.
Yeah.
So not a true rebellion, but also I wouldn't say that what the Nazis did was a true rebellion either.
Yeah, that's another Lucy one. Loosey-goosey.
Poorly done accents
Yeah.
by people who are not of the heritage. Lightning round. Both films deal with eye lines in an interesting way. So The Great Escape is like, you want to stay out of the people who run the camp's eye line so you don't get caught. Similarly, I thought that actually the way that Tiptoes was filmed was interesting because often they would shoot really low from like the eye line of the little people characters.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a movie about this subject matter made by average sized people, you would not think of even doing that in the first place, which seems like an obvious thing to do because if you're shooting a scene from a character's point of view, you want to get where their eye line is kind of. Like the camera is placed down low.
Yes.
But I feel like normally the camera would kind of just be up by like average sized people eye lines. So I thought it was at least filmed in a respectful way for the most part.
Yeah.
In that way, in that it just kind of like these people are smaller, so let's just kind of match their eye lines. So that was kind of cool. That said, the rest of the way that the movie was filmed, it seemed like it was like quasi improvised how it was filmed. Like it was a lot of handheld cameras, and the lighting also looked like bad 1980s softcore kind of movie.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah.
The camera work in terms of camera placement was well done for the most part, but everything else, woof.
Yeah, I agree. There were some bizarre decisions. The scene where Kate and Matt are on the phone with each other.
Oh yeah, that was weird.
So they're using diopters close up on her lips. He is being lit by a single, like what looks like an HMI a mile away without any diffusion. So it's just like a hard white rim light.
Yeah.
And then everything else is pitch black.
Yeah.
Like you can't see a fucking thing, including him.
Yeah.
That I was like, and intercutting between those two shots didn't work. Like it was so visually jarring.
Yeah, it was strange. Her
lighting was very soft, very warm,
very sexy.
And they were using
in a weird
diopters
way.
and some. Yeah, it was like super sexy.
They're like focusing on her lips a lot.
Yeah, and then his was like hard and weird, and maybe emotionally there's an argument for that, but it just didn't work. It just seems so weird.
It felt like it was probably filmed that way because they needed to get this as a pickup later.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, we got Kate to come in and do this pickup shot. We're just going to do it in whatever room we can get. We can't get the original set back. So they just filmed it extremely close just so that they could disguise the fact that they're just in a studio or something.
Yeah.
That was what I assumed was why they shot it that way, because it really tonally didn't make any sense why they were doing that. But also, I guess that's the microcosm of the macrocosm of the film.
Yeah.
So there you go. Anyway, last of my lightning round is stunt actors were used for both films. You said Steve McQueen did motorcycle tricks, but he had a stunt actor for some of them. Similarly, Gary Oldman, he had a stunt person being him for some of the wide shots.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because you notice they shoot Gary Oldman's character from kind of like the hips up. So you don't really ever see his feet on the ground. So he's just on his knees. And then some of the shots where you see his face and his whole body, you can see that they like crudely animated shoes on him. I noticed that and I was like, that looks bad. So they basically cropped out his legs and crudely animated some shoes on his knees.
Yeah.
So some bad CG. And then for the rest of it, they would have like fake legs when he's sitting on a couch, and then his real legs were like inside the couch. So he had these like cartoonishly puppety legs.
I know. I noticed that a few times, and I was like, "Wow, his feet are really flopping."
Yeah, he had some floppy feet some of the times.
Yeah.
And he had a special like little arm harness that would like make his arms shorter. But then in some of the shots, you could see that he didn't have that on. So he had long arms in some shots and shorter arms in some other ones.
Well, I noticed like he would have like his back would bulge.
Yeah.
And then other shots, it wouldn't be bulged. And I was like, what is going on here? I don't even know what they're trying to achieve.
Well, his character had a hunchback of some kind.
Yes. Yeah. It just seems so inconsistent.
Yeah, it did seem very inconsistent. Sometimes it looked really convincing and good, and sometimes it really looked fake. Yeah, but then some of the shots, they would have like basically a stunt person who was a little person doing the wide shots so you didn't see his face.
Right.
And you could tell that it was a different person because that person's gait was different than Gary Oldman's gait when he normally walked.
Yeah. What a complicated shoot for him. Like the logistics, like it just would have been so much easier to hire somebody who is a little person to do that role, a la, Peter Dinklage, rather than get Gary Oldman to just like go through this rigmarole. You know?
Well,
fascinating.
I mean, I would be interested to find out what Gary Oldman thought of the film in terms of like, this is going to be my big acting break. He had a lot of big acting breaks before then, but this was going to be like a big Oscar-winning thing. You never know what a actor is going through when they choose a movie because they don't know how the movie's going to turn out.
Yeah.
So on paper, this probably seemed like it was a good idea. And then once the movie was finished, it was like, oh no, we have to erase this from history somehow.
But still have it accessible on YouTube for $4.
The niche appeal of it being such a bad, weird movie.
With specifically McConaughey in it.
They probably made more money because of how bad it was versus if it was actually a fairly well done film.
Yeah.
Because I never would have watched it otherwise.
Oh, same. If it was just average, who cares?
Yeah, who cares? But because it's so bad.
Do you have any other similarities there?
No, that was
Mike?
that's kind of the end of the lightning round, I guess. That wasn't super lightning-y, but...
No, that was good. That was great.
That was pretty lightning-y.
It was super lightning-y. I don't regret watching Tiptoes.
No.
But I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah. It was rough.
I regret that it was made.
Yeah.
But I don't regret watching it.
No. But also, can you think of another movie which has this kind of like representation for little people in it?
No, absolutely not. No.
Yeah, so it's like kind of a weird double-edged sword, I feel like, because it could have been...
Its attempt was noble, its execution was flawed.
Yes.
Yeah, because really, like, in a way, it's such an inclusive film. But then just the execution was just so brutal that it just kind of comes across as this very demeaning film.
Also, it's wild when a movie doesn't resolve its plot lines ever. Like, it sets stuff up and then just drops them.
Just moves on to the next thing.
And then just doesn't know how to end itself. So it just ends.
I will say, I think it might be the single worst ending I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's up there. Like, just saying you can kiss me to what doesn't make any sense. Like, it wasn't justified. There's no warm up to it, that kind of thing, I think, is weird.
Well, also, she's like
very jarring.
She's really committing herself to this family.
Yeah.
Like, why would you kiss the brother of the guy that you just separated from?
And whose baby you had.
Like, you're going to have to see that guy again. You should just run for the hills from the entire family because, like, why would you, go get in deeper? Is what she's doing.
So it's funny, Mike. I was about halfway through the film, and I looked it up on IMDb, and all the plot said was it's something like an awkward love triangle between two brothers.
Oh, really?
And that was the synopsis, and I was like, what? There's no love triangle here. But then, in the last 2 minutes, I was like, oh, there is a love triangle. Just 98% of the film has nothing to do with that love triangle.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the movie's trying to imply that Gary Oldman's character his name is Rolf. So yeah, the movie implies that Rolf is romantically interesting to Kate Beckinsale's character because he just happens to be decent.
Yeah, he's just nice.
He's just like a nice guy who isn't judgmental and doesn't have like some sort of weird, unresolvable resentment.
Yeah, he's just like content.
He kind of just seems content. He has trouble with relationships himself, but the romantic background between those two characters was not clear. So
yeah,
and then also the end credits music was just generic kind of rock and roll. Like if someone was like, "My uncle has a band, can we use his music?"
Yeah,
it's not even the dad of the person. It's like, "My uncle has got a band. Can we use his music in the movie?" And they're like, "Great, let's put it in." It was like just average uncle rock.
That's what the whole movie kind of felt like. Yeah, it all felt inappropriate for what they were going for. Yeah, I don't know. The music is such a big part of a film, and they really shit the bed on this one.
Yeah. Well, also, I found the music in The Great Escape to be kind of strange too, because it's such a serious
very 60s.
topic, but the music is like whistly, like doot 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 doot. Like, what is it about war films and like upbeat kind of like
it's all
tunes?
about patriotism, right? Like, it's supposed to be upbeat.
Well, but The Bridge Over the River Kwai has a similar thing.
It does, and it won an Oscar for Best Original Song.
Like
yeah, it's about loyalty and duty, and with that levity, I think that's what draws people into getting into the service in the first place. They don't really think about how gnarly it's going to get.
Interesting.
Like they depict these war moments as pretty chill and almost fun.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, I could do that. When in actuality, it's horrendous.
Yeah. Well, even in The Great Escape, when they're going around playing their flute and singing Yankee Doodle.
Yeah, for the 4th of July.
For the 4th of July, that was also like another moment where you're presented with just really upbeat military music. It's so weird.
Yeah, but it's common.
I know. That's just a funny choice because they never do that nowadays. You never have like a war film where the music is like upbeat and kind of like almost a little too happy.
Yeah.
Given that they're trying to escape from the Nazis.
I know, but the Nazis are nice.
Yeah, they're nice
in the
Nazis.
film, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they're kind of dumb.
Yeah. Well, supposedly the Nazis were dumb.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
You heard it here, K9.
They weren't
the Nazis were dumb.
They weren't all clever military geniuses. I mean, I guess we're seeing it nowadays in real life too. Or
it still applies.
It still applies. Like you see kind of like the rise of like alt-right stuff in the States. It's like those people don't come off as smart guys. They never do.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I will say this feels like the least comparable duo yet.
Really?
Yeah, I think this one's the most fucked up one, in my opinion.
Yeah, it seemed like an impossible task. Yeah, they are kind of like two weird movies that you never put together, but that's the beauty of From Justin to Kane,
That's the beauty of the pod, man. That's why we're here. That's why the K9s love us. I also think this might be the most money we've spent on an episode because you and I both individually rented Tiptoes.
We collectively gave, between the two of us, we gave whatever company owns Tiptoes, we gave them $10.
Yeah, I watched standard definition, so I only gave them $4. Yeah.
Yeah, I should have got standard definition because I just watched it on my phone.
But yeah, this is definitely our most expensive episode. So if you liked it and you support it, please pay to our Patreon account. It's From Justin to Kane, $dollar bills is the username.
And support our Kickstarter too. We're trying to kickstart a From Justin to Kane board game.
Yes.
We hear board games do well on Kickstarter, so we're just like, let's go. Make a From Justin to Kane board game where the point of the game is you have to take two movies and find similarities between them.
And what's nice is you'll keep getting new, similar to like Cards Against Humanity, there are upgrades you can buy.
Yeah.
So the game will always be relevant. There will be a classic cinema package. There will be a
straight to video package.
Yeah, straight to video package. There will be a dirty movies package. And exclusively animal movies package.
Yes. We should do Air Bud. Or
we should
something
do
in the
Air
Air Bud Legacy, I guess is what it would be called.
That's a good idea.
Like, when the Alien movies is not like the Alien trilogy because there's like 5 or 6 of them now.
Yeah.
So when they come up with box sets, like the Alien Legacy, it transcends quintology, it transcends sexology. That's probably why they call it the Legacy, because then they're not saying sexology.
That's funny.
A sextet?
Yeah.
That's probably what it is, actually.
It's a sextet, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, again, why they probably don't use it.
Yeah. Well, it'd be quintology. Then it would have to be sexology.
Quadrilogy,
Sextology?
quintology, sextology.
Yeah.
That just sounds like a weird tech market of like, look at this new sextology.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just fun sex toys and things.
But anyway, we should look at something in the Air Bud Legacy.
Yeah, I agree. Canines, because they're dogs, they love movies about dogs.
They love movies about dogs. Yeah,
they're gonna eat it up, just like dog food.
That's why we did get. Yeah, you're right. That's why we did get the most kind of, if I can call it, hate mail, which I wouldn't call it that. Mostly just comments on social media saying
lukewarm mail.
Why would you guys pick cats? Well, we did get some DMs where people were like, "Are you serious about this?"
Really, we got DMs.
We got a couple of people slid into our DMs for sure.
You know what's fun though? You gotta piss off the fans just to keep them awake. Keep them compelled.
Yeah, I listen to some podcasts and some people complain about how angry their fans are at them, and I'm like, I want that.
Yeah, you envy them, don't you?
Kind of do. Well, it means that people are paying attention.
Yeah, and they have feelings towards what you do. Yeah. Isn't that the goal?
Because I only ever really hear positive things, except for cats. That was the one time where people were like, "What are you guys doing?"
Same. Close friends of mine gave me shit for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it means they care.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're like, you guys are going against the grain of what you established. It's like, you know what? You're not wrong.
Yeah, and you know what? We're allowed to make mistakes too, and maybe that was a mistake. I'm not going to say it is or it isn't, but we're human.
That's what both of these films taught us today. It doesn't matter where you're from, what you look like. We're all human.
Exactly.
Just, get along.
Isn't that the theme of the podcast, Mike?
It is.
We're all human, aka dogs, because we're all canines.
Oh yeah, right. I keep forgetting the canon that we established, that you think canines are actual dogs.
Yeah, literal dogs. Listen to our podcast.
Yeah, that our fans are dogs, right? I keep forgetting about that part of the From Justin to Kane canon, which you can find out about on our From Justin to Kane wiki. Not to be confused with our wiki feet.
Which is also a thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and very much around. You can Google it anytime. All right. Well, yeah. Is there anything else you want to
Yeah, just when I was watching The Great Escape, I was thinking about when I went to the World War II Museum in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because of how it led you through the war. You kind of were assigned the dog tag of a specific soldier, and you got to hear their specific story. So you'd scan your dog tag, and you'd learn stuff about this one person who is a real person who existed. But because it was in the United States, the way that it was represented, it was very obviously very patriotic. Like America did nothing wrong. It kind of really spelled out just like, this is what was going on in the war. And then America was like, hey, you know what? We're going to get involved just to save the day, right? Because we're the kings of the world, right? But the point of the story is, at the end of the museum, you watch this 4D movie about World War II. There
are 4Ds? There's smell, right?
Well, smell isn't the fourth D.
What is it? Moisture?
Usually it's moisture or wind.
Right.
When you watch a 4D movie, it's usually they blow air in your face or your chair rocks back and forth.
Right. So the fifth D is smell.
I didn't smell any, gun smoke.
Right.
Yeah, it was weird. For some reason, when I was watching The Great Escape, it just reminded me of when I had this 4D World War II experience. Because it seemed like it was tonally off from what I imagine being in World War II to be. Because World War II was just like, I just see it as this violent, terrifying illustration of like the depths of man's kind of cruelty to each other kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so The Great Escape didn't represent that at all. Like a few people got shot, and then, but generally the POW guys and the Nazis were buddy.
Yeah.
And then when I was watching this 4D movie, you were just, there'd be explosions and there'd be wind coming in your face. Or there would be like a giant like set piece of like a plane that would like come, like a prop would basically just fly, no pun intended, it would fly through the room. But then at the very end, the atom bomb goes off. And you're experiencing the 4D experience of the atom bomb going off in a movie theater, which seems like it really downplays the atom bomb,
Yeah.
Like,
interesting.
So you're just kind of like, no amount of technical wizardry in that room could ever match what is going to happen in like Hiroshima. But they still make you experience it for some reason. So you have like the screen goes all white. your chair is like really rocking, and then they're blowing wind in your face, and they turn the volume up a little bit. But it's like, well, this isn't what it's like. Why even bother? You know?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, when I was watching the movie, I was thinking of that.
It's interesting though. Depicting war or like, you know, horrible things is really hard to do.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword in a way. If you were to pull it off and depict it properly, would anybody want to sit through it?
No.
And secondly, there's a huge expense to trying to portray something with accuracy.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference between The Great Escape and The Thin Red Line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Both are great, but it's a different viewing experience. And The Thin Red Line is not a film that makes you want to be pro-war. You're just like feeling pretty bad about everything while you watch that film. And that's the point of it. I would argue The Deer Hunter does the same thing. But then, you know, Bridge Over the River Kwai, The Great Escape, The Dirty Dozen, they all, even like The Longest Day has a lot of weird levity to it. The 60s in particular depicted war as this very fun amusement ride kind of activity. Even though people are fucking dying in the background, your main character never dies, and it's just kind of a good time. And it's like, wow, what an adventure. But then you watch a more modern rendition of, you know, a moment from the First or Second World War, and it is just gnarly.
Yeah.
Super upsetting, super visceral, disgusting, hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's strange. I guess it probably has to do with the fact that like after the war ended, you know, there was a time of prosperity in America, and they were feeling pretty good about themselves for dropping a bomb on everybody and being like, we won the war. Yeah. So like, so they won the war. So, you know, America rocks. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Whereas after the Vietnam War, you know, things were not going well. Even during the Vietnam War, the
huge social change.
Yeah, a lot of social upheaval, and you kind of saw that in the way that movies represented Vietnam War, even like while it was happening, kind of thing, like when they were making movies about it.
Yeah, it's true. I think, you know, people were patriotic and for the Second World War and the involvement, but the Vietnam War was this self-imposed hardship that the United States just endeavored to, you know, undertake, and all it did was kill a bunch of people and achieve nothing.
Yeah.
And that pissed off the public, right? Yeah. So there's a real social change.
And then, like, America didn't really, like, they didn't get rid of the Nazis.
No.
That wasn't even their, like, whole thing. But
no,
they seem to have, like, absorbed some of them.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's cool that, like, one subject matter can have such a spectrum of tone and how it's approached and displayed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, one can be really gritty and visceral and touching, and another one just is like amusing and fun and has great levity to it.
Just like the original script of Tiptoes.
Exactly.
Which I've never read.
Sweet tieback.
Thank you.
Throwback?
The callback.
Yeah, we'll call it a tieback. Callback. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, it's interesting how you can just kind of change the tone of something. Like, the subject matter is almost irrelevant. It's how you approach it.
Yeah. We got to watch, we got to do Come and See.
Yes. Yeah, I really want to see
like
that.
A really hard to watch movie that's like war is hell. Mm-hmm. And it is.
Quite literally, yeah. It's an awful, awful place to be.
Great. Well, that was another great epi.
Yeah, I think that was good. I'm glad we got to take a little, a little trip back to history with Mike Robertson.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Sorry, where were you in 2003?
Oh, I did. I don't know if you heard. I went to the Sundance Film Festival in 2003.
Oh, I thought I heard that, and I just didn't believe it. I wanted to hear it from you first.
Yeah.
So Mike went to Sundance in 2003.
I didn't tell this story on the pod. I met Roger Ebert.
No, you didn't tell that story.
Yeah, I met him.
Oh, that's cool.
I am a filmmaker myself, and Roger Ebert. I was getting a photo of my friend with Roger Ebert, who I was there with, and. Wait, that sentence made it sound like I was there with Roger Ebert. No, I was there with my friend.
And he was your friend.
Yeah. No, I was with my friend. We saw Roger Ebert after a morning screening.
Yeah. He
comes out. He seemed a bit grumpy. Anyway, so my friend wants to get a picture with him. He agrees to take a photo. I have this is pre-digital camera, so I'm using a film camera here. And
whoa, what a hipster.
So I try and take a photo, but it doesn't work, is because I didn't wind the thing.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that at the time because it wasn't my camera. So anyway, Roger Ebert throws shade at me. He says, you have to know how to use a camera before you take a picture. He insults me.
Whoa. Man, you've been insulted by Roger Ebert?
I sometimes think about that. It's like Roger Ebert insulted my abilities to operate a camera, which, I mean, he wasn't wrong.
Funny
I couldn't
about
operate
what he
it.
Said?
What?
You know what's fascinating? That is now no longer true.
I mean, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
you don't need to know how to use a camera to take a picture. I would love for a celebrity to throw me shade. You know, what'd be fun is like courtside in an NBA game and you like shit talk one of the players and then they start shit talking you when they go to the bench. That's sweet. That's the good stuff.
I also met Philip Seymour Hoffman that week. Well, I said, can I take a photo? Or would you mind posing with a photo with me? And he said, no. And then he walked away.
So right away. That's awesome. But you've been told no or had like a slightly negative interaction with two celebrities. That's pretty sweet.
Oh, probably more than that, actually. But those are the two from that week.
Yeah.
The other celebs,
awesome.
the other celebs that we met were generally pretty nice. But
okay.
Roger Ebert and Philip Seymour Hoffman, both rest in peace. I wonder if this is some sort of karmic retribution for them. I mean, that's kind of mean. Maybe I should take that back. I don't know. Should I keep it in the pod?
We don't have to decide. Yeah,
it's kind of funny.
It is kind of funny. Yeah, they're both cool, and I mean they're both prolific in their own avenue.
I actually me too. I sometimes will put on Siskel and Ebert episodes on YouTube to put myself to sleep.
Really?
Yeah, it's calming. They're talking about movies that I watched that I grew up with. I used to watch their show all the time. So.
Oh, really?
That's cool. It was like a huge moment to meet Roger Ebert. Like I was like,
I bet
I was starstruck, but then also he dissed me. So.
I bet you were starstruck, and that's why you couldn't use a camera.
That was probably why. Yeah, I was fumbling with the camera.
I would have been nervous. I would have been shaking in my boots.
Yeah, it was like very nerve-wracking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, did you know that I was at Sundance in 2003?
I'm sorry, you were where?
Sundance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, raindrops were falling on my head.
Ooh, nice. I wanted to reference Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, so I'm glad you did. Also, maybe that's a film we should do at some point.
Maybe we
future.
should, yeah. You know what?
That film is fun.
Oh, you know what would be funny if Paul Newman, if he had the Butch Cassidy Organic Salad Dressing Festival?
Just like proprietors of salad dressing gather once a year at this amazing, specifically for salad, like no dips, like thick ranch, get out of here. If it's not on lettuce, you're not invited.
Get out.
Yeah, just like olive oil vendors, balsamic vendors, like sesame vendors.
You're just listing salad dressing stuff. To what end?
I love Newman-o. It's some good shit.
It is good. Yeah, it's good salad dressing. Yeah.
You know, I think I was 18 when I realized my grandma told me that was Paul Newman's line of salad dressing. And I was like, no, it's not. Are you stupid? Like, what? Like, he wouldn't have time to make a salad dressing company. But then I looked at the label and it's his face. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I've been having this my whole life. And I just realized now as a grown ass man.
You know what's great that Paul Newman makes? I mean, his company makes, I guess. Have you ever had Newman-os?
No, what's that?
It's Oreos, but Newman-os.
Ooh. It's really
amazing.
Savory, like olive oil and balsamic vinegar flavor.
No, Jesus, no.
Like crouton crackers.
But Newman-os are like the Paul Newman Oreos, and they're better than Oreos.
Are you shitting me?
No, they're so good.
I'm going to look this up right now. Newman-os. Newman-os. Oh my God.
Yeah,
cookies.
They're so
it's in
good.
the cookie category.
I should see if we can order some.
Holy shit. It looks like an Oreo too. Are you sure it's not just Oreo in a different package?
Well, I don't know, but they're really good. They're better than Oreos somehow.
So they taste better. So a serving size is 2 cookies in each package, 130 calories, 5 grams of fat, 1.5 grams of saturated fat, 95 milligrams of sodium. It's got potassium.
Mm-hmm.
It's got fiber. It's got 1 gram of protein. It's got 5 milligrams of calcium and 1 milligram of iron.
Why are you reading this?
And it's kosher.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's cool. Why wouldn't I read that, Mike? I mean, come on, man.
Anyway, this episode was brought to you by Newman-o's.
Could you imagine being sponsored by Newman's? Would be amazing.
I would be like, look, don't give us money. Just give me a lifetime supply of Newman-o's. I would love that.
Yeah, 100%.
They're so good.
Mike and I barter just for any potential future vendors. We do barter. We will take things rather than money, especially edible things.
Yes, money can be exchanged for goods and services. So why not just give us the goods and services?
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we should wrap this puppy up because, now everybody's going to go online and buy some Newman-os.
Let's put a baby canine in a blanket and wrap this puppy up.
I really want us to do a riff on like, oh man, the dogs are barking and just talking about putting shoes on feet.
Yeah.
Like there's a fun canine situation there too.
Yeah.
But that'll be for a future episode. I just,
have you ever had your dogs barking?
Oh, my dogs bark all the time and I try to put them in nice cozy beds, AKA my shoes.
Yeah.
And they feel real good, real luscious little slumber for the two puppies as they slip into my, New Balance 573 retrofits.
Okay, wow. Anyway, this episode is brought to you by New Balance 573 retrofits and Newman-o's.
Yeah, Newman-o's, yeah, and by Feet Everywhere.
Wiki Feet.
Oh, Jesus Christ! I hate how perverted this stupid podcast keeps getting with you and I.
We can cut it out. We can cut out.
No, I like it. When I say I hate it, I actually mean I'm super into it.
Well, that's the perverted way. That's the pervert's way.
You say one thing, you really mean another.
Yeah.
Talking about dogs barking, but you're really talking about Wiki Feet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, boy, I could watch those dogs bark all day.
Exactly.
Just looking at Danny DeVito's feet on Wiki Feet. Anywho, this has been from Justin and Kane.
Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Sweet Jesus Christ.